Rogers acquisition, action will be taken under agenda item 6. Sorry. As to the Rogers property, action will be taken under agenda item 6. As to the Barker property, that was dropped from consideration. And with regard to Isaac Freeman, the board authorized the making of a counteroffer. With regard to Ainsley, Arunya Kasem, and Kim McDonald properties, the board authorized or approved a replacement housing valuation payment under the board's relocation assistance plan. With regard to Palmadesi, the board authorized execution of a fully negotiated purchase and sale agreement. And with regard to Sun Capital, the board authorized execution of the possession and use agreement. Under item 2 in the closed session agenda, the board is dropping agenda item 11, which is a public hearing on a resolution of necessity for the Seacon Financial and Construction Company property. And any action on the Silva Bypass Trust will be taken, if at all, under agenda item 10 after the public hearing. That's it.
Thank you, Jim. I need a motion on agenda approval.
So moved.
I'll second it. Been moved and seconded that the agenda be approved. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yeah. Opposed? The ayes have it. Public comment on matters not on the agenda.
No.
I have no requests. Approval of the June the 11th, 2015 minutes.
I'll move for approval of the minutes as presented.
I'll second it. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Review of the monthly year-to-date revenue and expenses.
Good morning, Mr. President and members of the board. This monthly cash flow report covers the month of May 2015. The agency's starting cash position for the month was $25.3 million. We did receive revenue this month, $82,000 in reimbursement for the work on the RFMP, and also our second assessment payment of $1.8 million. Total revenue for the month was approximately $1.9 million. On the expense side, in addition to our normal admin expenses, we booked the final 2 payments of the 2008 bonds, which were part of the 2015 refunding and new money bond issuance. So that's off the books now as of June 30th. On project expenses, we had a $300,000 payment to the Corps for our local cost share on the GRR. This isn't new money or anything. It's an ongoing true-up, and the agreed-upon amounts were due at that time. We don't foresee us owing anything more than what we've agreed upon previously. We had a $90,000 payment as part of the Campora settlement, and $192,000 in work on the Southport project. The total expenses for May were approximately $1.1 million, and that brought the agency's cash position for the end of the month at $26.1 million. That's the end of the cash flow report for the month.
No questions.
No questions. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The next item of business is the consent agenda. And on item number 7, the consideration of flood assessment guidelines, I'd like to approve it as is, subject to revisions that may come up and clarification of things in the revision. Okay?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. So I'll move for approval of the consent items as presented.
I'll second that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Next item is public hearing. And we have,
I read it all out.
consideration of Resolution 150704, authorizing the eminent domain action to acquire real property in the Sacramento River Southport EIP project, Yolo County Assessor's Parcel 04623001000.
Good morning, President Denton, members of the WSAFCA Board. Today I'll be presenting one resolution of necessity for the Sacramento Southport Early Implementation Project for your consideration. In this presentation, as you know, I have to go through an exercise that I'm going to discuss the goals of the Southport project, a brief overview of how we got to where we are today, and then I'll present information required for the findings or resolution of necessity. So, as you know, first and foremost, the Southport EIP project is a public safety project. WSAFCA's overarching goal is to provide 200-year flood protection to the city of West Sacramento and its residents and cause the least amount of private injury to private property. This particular design is to construct a project to achieve 200-year flood protection that maximizes use of local resources. Briefly, where we've been, we had a problem identification report that led to an alternatives analysis, and then for that process, Southport was identified as one of the most critical areas to be fixed in the system that surrounds the city of West Sacramento. And in 2011, a preliminary design report was completed which analyzed deficiencies and solutions to address those deficiencies. Since that time, we have advanced design on Interim Village Parkway, which is now at 100% and is planned for release this month. The levee design is being completed to 90% complete. And lastly, the project design team anticipates the levee design will be completed later this calendar year and put out the bid at the beginning of next calendar year to be awarded early spring of 2016. Just prior to the preliminary design report, staff presented a decision design hierarchy for the WSAFCA board to help deliberate on solutions to address known deficiencies. So identify the problems, look at the solutions, test the solutions, and assemble them in different ways to maximize benefits and minimize impacts. These were presented to you in a series of combined measure alternatives, the first of which include adjacent levee with berms and adjacent levee with a cutoff wall. The other there were three total combined measure alternatives brought to 15% level design. The second one included adjacent levee with cutoff walls, setback with berms, and those are extensive berms, 200 feet berms as I recall, as well as a partial levee degrade, creating an offset area. And the third combined measure alternative was fix-in-place levees with cutoff wall, fix-in-place levee with berms. Going from a feasibility level alternative to moving into a design alternatives, the team presented two guiding principles for selecting a preferred design alternative. One was to develop a project that provides the greatest amount of protection to the city as soon as possible, and secondarily to minimize the effects on the community, which still allows us to achieve the first objective. The combined measure of adjacent levee with seepage berm, setback levee with seepage berm, and fix in place with seepage berms designed and assembled to produce two design alternatives. Those were both bought to 15% design. And this was presented to the board in January 2014. Project team presented 2 design evaluations that include various solutions to address the levee deficiencies. As you can see, alternative 1 included fix-in-place repairs of conventional cutoff walls in segment A and B and in the southern end of the project. Alternative 2 consisted of the same solutions for segments A, C, and D, and G, but segments B and F solutions included a setback levee. So common risk reduction elements for both alternatives were advanced to 65%. The board authorized further valuation studies for segments B and F, largely at the request of some property owners who are being affected by the project. I'm sorry, let me go back one. Based on the feasibility of the measures evaluated and the impacts to private property, cost effectiveness, and the ability to maximize flood protection for Southport, the board directed the project team to integrate the preferred design alternative into the project design for segments B and F. So that was after those valuation and engineering evaluations were completed. So this is a hearing resolution for a resolution of necessity. There are 4 findings that we need to make, that you need to make in order to authorize this resolution. First, that the public interest and necessity of the proposed project, the project is planned and located in a manner that which is most compatible with the greatest public good and the least private injury. That the project is necessary. That the property itself is necessary for the project, and that an offer has been made to the owner of record. So first of all, in terms of the public interest and the necessity of the project, we've already discussed the fact that we've gone through a thorough evaluation and found that the Southport levee segment is one of the most deficient levee segments that we have. We've gone through a design process that's come up with a 5.8-mile improvement project, which includes fix-in-place setback solutions, and with seepage berms and cutoff walls. These are all in combination designed to address the deficiencies of the levee. The design itself was anticipated to provide 200-year flood protection, meeting state and federal standards, protect not only the people of Southport, but in fact the entire city, to over 50,000 people, $4 billion in community assets. And without these improvements, resident business continue to be at risk during a major storm event. The project is planned and located in a manner that is most compatible with the greatest public good and least amount of private injury. As you know, this project design goes from just south of Sac Bank, where the Army Corps of Engineers completed a project not too long ago, although just opened this past spring, and it continues all the way down to the city's southern border. This is by far the most ambitious project for the agency. It will address significant erosion issues along the riverbank. It will also improve levee geometry and deal with a number of the seepage issues, both under and through seepage, that we've seen in Southport. The design process was very rigorous, went through months of evaluation and presentations to you as a board to actually get us to a preferred alternative before we were able to complete the EIR, put it out for review, and then have you accepted last March. The property is necessary for the project. So, as part of this project, South River Road will be eliminated, and therefore, to provide access to remaining property owners along the riverfront, the design team has put forth an alternative roadway called Interim Village Parkway. Interim Village Parkway is a roadway that has been in the city's general plan and the Southport framework plan since 1990. The alignment that you see on this parcel closely aligns with the general plan. It's a little bit different on the end, and that was done for safety purposes. So The Silva parcel itself is approximately 22 acres in size and located in segment B, away from the planned levee improvements. Approximately 2.3 acres is needed for the construction of Villa Parkway. As I said, the interim Village Parkway is a road relocation for South River Road, which is coincident and consistent with the city's general plan. Acquisition of this area creates an uneconomic remnant along the eastern property line, which measures approximately 1.6 acres. This is also part of the acquisition, the fee acquisition. Most of this area is, right now is part of a drainage ditch. There's also an area for a private road easement needed to connect interim Village Parkway to Gregory Avenue. That area measures 0.2 or 1/5 of an acre. And we're also requesting a temporary construction easement along both sides of the construction area, just so that, you know, any damages can be kept within that construction zone. That's the need for that property. And lastly, an offer has to be made to the owner of record. So the WSAFCA board approved the acquisition at the February 12, 2005 board meeting earlier this year. A complete offer package was organized, assembled, and mailed to the Silva trustees for the property acquisition. That happened after the board approved that offer. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Otherwise, I would encourage you to open the public hearing.
I'm going to open it for a public hearing now and for comments that you have on the item number 10.
Good morning, Mr. President and Board. I'm Michael Silva. I represent the Silva Trust as of Friday of this last week. I've been working with Bender Rosenthal to work this deal out amicably, and so far so good. I just had a couple questions. One, why is the road transfers through our property versus going down Gregory Avenue under the railroad trestle, where there's already a road and a dangerous intersection there?
Staff.
I think we'll have staff make a comment on that after your presentation, if you'd like.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I asked the board not to file eminent domain, and like I said, I am working with Bender Rosenthal. My stepmom died last year, who was one of the trustees, and my brother just resigned last Monday as a trustee due to his health. So I'm in the process of filing the paperwork to get the property put in my name so I can legally proceed with this process to let the board acquire the property.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
So I'd like to respond to both of Mr. Silva's comments. As you know, Mr. Silva presented a letter to, saying that he was going to present today, asking about the location of Village Parkway. As I had stated in my presentation, that the interim Village Parkway alignment that we have is generally consistent with the general plan. So only at the location where it connects to Gregory have we modified it so that it comes in at a 90-degree angle, and that really is done there for safety purposes. So that will be as I think we've mentioned to you before, that will have traffic controls. It'll have at least one stop sign, but probably 3. Why is it not in the other location? Well, the other location does not improve the safety for the roadway, and it's not consistent with the city's general plan. So really what we're doing is that we are implementing something in the city's general plan which serves as an appropriate replacement location for South River Road. Secondarily, Mr. Silva has mentioned that he's been working with BRI and asked that we not file with the courts. My conversations with our consultant, with our right-of-way consultant, is that Mr. Silva has been working diligently to get power of attorney, and we've been working through the appraisal and negotiations, and generally have understood that he is open to a possession and use agreement if we can agree on price. And so we're asking you to approve the RON, help Mr. Silva understand that, or help us prepare to go to court if necessary, but we will continue to direct BRI to try to pursue a possession and use while he is trying to achieve power of attorney to be able to sign on behalf of the trust.
So what you're saying here is by approving the condemnation today, will, if necessary, we'll be able to move forward timely?
That's correct. But it doesn't, my point is that it's not going to happen tomorrow, and we're trying to work with the property owner so that we can get possession and use so that construction can proceed as planned this fall.
Okay.
Okay?
That's it. Thank you. I need a motion to remove item number 11 from the agenda.
We need to close the public session, public comment, and then we'll have we'll vote on it. Close public comment.
Okay, I can, yes.
Right, public hearing.
We'll close the public session and go to item number 11.
Well, I will move that we go ahead and I'll move for approval of resolution 150704.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Chairman Denton, you actually took action in closed session to drop agenda item 11. You can do it again in open session if you want, but you have accomplished that.
I didn't hear you.
We dropped item 11 in closed session and he reported it, so we don't need to.
Okay.
So we're on to project updates.
Okay, we're on project updates now.
Good morning, President Denton, members of the board. In your packet is the flood protection progress report, and I'll just go through some of the highlights or things that have changed or new information since the last report. Under the finance section, I just want to let the board know that the zero land value parcels that are hand billed by the city in support of the flood assessment, at the end of that process, there tend to be some delinquent payments or lack of payment. And for the 2014-15 tax year, that total is about $73,000. And as with every year, those will be written off as bad debt. And that amount represents about 1.6% of the total assessment citywide. Since the last update, the final EIS for the Southport project completed the 30-day public review period that closed last week on July 6th. Core staff is coordinating with WSAFCA environmental team to review and provide responses to the public comments. Final approval of the EIS and the record of decision is still expected later this year. For the tribal consultation, revisions have been completed to the programmatic agreement, and the final PA is now with the SHPO for review and approval. In parallel with SHPO's review and approval, a clean version is circulating and making its way through Core District for signatures in anticipation of SHPO's signature at the end of the review period. And that should be at the end of this month or first week of August. On the Interim Village Parkway package, That consultation is continuing and progressing towards completion. The Corps formally transmitted the findings report to the tribe on June 5th. That 30-day review period ended without comment from the tribe, so is deemed satisfactory, and that now report has been submitted to SHPO for their 30-day review period, and again, final approval is expected for that consultation the first week in August. As you know, and as presented today, the real estate team is working very diligently to secure property rights for the project, and a number of possession and use agreements from property owners are being sought to pave the way for construction, primarily focused on Village Parkway alignment first, and then the levee alignment second. And also, as the board is aware, relocation services are being offered to a number of affected property owners, and especially since many of those properties are currently in escrow. To date, we have closed on 6 property acquisitions, and negotiations are ongoing with over 14 other owners. And to date, 2 condemnation cases have been scheduled with the court in September. And at the June 17th City Council meeting, the City Council approved a resolution that will provide fee credits to property owners who are being relocated as part of the project, and a list of some of those fee credits are in the report. And then also, lastly, under real estate, this past month, staff discovered that one of the properties affected by the project is in bankruptcy. And so in coordination with the WSAFCA Council, we are in the process of negotiating a contract with a bankruptcy attorney to assist with that minor acquisition needed from that property during the bankruptcy proceedings. And this contract will be, we're expecting about a $10,000 budget, and this will be one of the contracts that the WSAFCA general manager will enter into in accordance with the authority that you guys granted to him at a previous board meeting. Next month, we'll report out on whether or not that contract was executed, and we'll keep you apprised. For engineering design, we're continuing to march towards completion of the 90% plans and specifications scheduled for the end of this month for the levee portion of the project. The team has also begun coordination with the Board of Senior Consultants for their review of the 90% design deliverables. Right now, a 2-day workshop is scheduled for August 20th and 21st of, well, August 20 and 21. And we'll keep the board apprised as we prepare for that, and we'll report out on it next month at the board meeting as well. As you'll recall, for the Village Parkway package, the board approved a construction management contract with SOMAS. That contract has been finalized, and the notice to proceed was issued, and they've completed their first deliverable, which was a constructability review of the 100% plans and specifications for that Village Parkway component. Now, under North Area Real Estate, staff met with the DWR Real Estate Branch, branch, and the DWR Cadastral Group to identify next steps in moving the North Area projects to completion. And the Real Estate Branch recently assigned a new manager to the projects, which has actually proven to be a very productive move on their part. Usually it tends to slow things down. We actually have a very experienced manager that's really working well with staff to move those things towards completion. So we're looking forward to getting that stuff through real estate as quickly as we can and be able to close out those projects. Good news on state funding agreements. We received the EIP funding agreement amendments earlier this week. We are currently, the team and WSAFCA Council are currently reviewing the proposed amendments for either execution or review and comment back to DWR. So we are trying to work through that as quickly as possible so we can execute those agreements as soon as possible. Also, with regards to funding, the complete UFRA application for the remaining portion of the Southport project was submitted to DWR on June 28th, and it's currently under DWR review. We're in contact with DWR weekly to check the status of that review and the next steps in the timeline towards execution of a UFRA funding agreement. This is a new process for them, so they're a little uncertain as to how that's going to unfold. And there are a number of urban agency submittals that they are also going through concurrent review. So we'll continue to track that and report to the board. It's not critical that that agreement be executed immediately because the lion's share of the funding for Southport is coming through the EIP agreement. On the general evaluation report, the latest from the Corps, they received a draft biological opinion from NIMS at the end of June. The draft has significant effects, or calls out significant effects to green sturgeon. The agency has requested additional information from the Corps to mitigate for those effects up to an acceptable level. Our environmental team is working closely with the Corps. We're scheduled to meet later this week to outline a path forward and to assist them in providing the requested information so that we can wrap that one up. On the rivers erosion project, between the last meeting and today, we received the executed 401 permit from the Regional Water Quality Control Board. So we are now one permit away from having all the permits necessary to be able to go to construction, and that's the 408 permit from the Corps. We are anticipating execution of that agreement, and the Flood Protection Board has tentatively scheduled a hearing at the July 24th meeting in order to be able to accept that permit and issue the encroachment, or approve the encroachment permit to go to allow us to go to construction this fall. In support of that, staff had released or advertised for the construction of that project back on June 26th. The bids are due July 23rd, and award of a construction contract is anticipated in August, and following that we anticipate construction to start early September. For the South Cross levee certification, there's really two steps needed to, excuse me, to complete getting that stretch of levee accepted by the Corps and into the PL 8499 program. The first step was to establish hydraulic separation, and we've completed that step. And the next step is to submit an application for eligibility determination. And as we speak, well, not as we speak, but currently staff is putting together that package, and we anticipate submitting an official application to the Corps probably sometime in August. Under public relations, I just wanted to report out, and the board may have seen recent media coverage on the Southport project, which has incorrectly described the number of homes impacted by the project, either at 22 or sometimes 24. We just want to make sure the board is aware that that number is 10, not near 24. Our consultant has provided staff with fact sheets and other key messages that we've been able to share with some of the city officials who have been contacted by the media to ensure that we have consistent messaging and that it's accurate with what our project is going to do. They are also working with staff in preparation for the this fall's California Flood Preparedness Week activities, which includes a large coordination and contribution with the West Sacramento Unified School District. or the Washington Unified School District, excuse me. On floodplain administration, I had reported out last time that the portions of the general plan update had gone through the Planning Commission, but it was officially, those changes were officially adopted by the City Council on June 17th. And those have our general plan now compliant with the state's SB 5 criteria. Under emergency preparedness, staff and the team received the first draft of the flood emergency response plan last week. That plan is currently under review, and we're still on schedule for the final draft in October, and that to be used in conjunction with the flood preparedness exercise that will also take place during California Flood Preparedness Week. And we are still on schedule to have the final plan be adopted in somewhere in January, February of 2016. On the flood emergency response projects round 2, as you recall, the city had submitted a proposal for additional emergency response projects. DWR has released their announcement of their intent to fund those projects, and West Sacramento is intended to be awarded a portion of our request, and that portion is limited to flood preparedness training and exercise activities. The other portions that we had requested for internal drainage and localized flooding and recovery, those are not intended to be funded by DWR during this round. They provided the website if you want to go to DWR's website to see who else, in addition to the city, is intended to be funded and how they're divvying up the $5 million. I encourage you to go to the website and check it out. And then lastly, we submitted a draft, a draft work plan for the second round under the Regional Flood Management Planning activities to DWR for review. That was done on June 23rd, and we expect their feedback later this week so that we can finalize that work plan and then begin in earnest on the remaining activities for round 2. That concludes my rather lengthy update, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Good job.
Guess that's it. There's no more information or anything?
No
Any
information
questions?
for me?
Meeting's adjourned.